Mr. President, honorary guests, dear Andrei, it's a great honor to participate in this very important event, which carries optimism in these tragic circumstances and times, with the atrocities and terrible crimes that are being by the Russian invader. We saw a moment ago the evidence of injured bodies and children, women, children. This is so expressive and utterly horrible. But before we speak about our co-activities on explaining these terrible crimes and atrocities, and of course bringing them, the criminals and perpetrators, in front of the courts, I would like to say a few reflections about the genesis of these events, these atrocities which touch the Ukrainians. Criminologists say for many times that to prevent a crime, you have to make the perpetrator aware of the fact that it's not worthwhile to commit a crime, that a perpetrator and bringing them to justice, to accountability, will be unavoidable. If we look at everything that is happening today and which happened from the 24th of February last year and even earlier in the Ukraine, one must come to a certain reflection or even scientific truths of criminology, which I mentioned here. I would like to refer and remind the Lech Kaczynski's 15 years ago in Tbilisi quote, who said a very important thing. He said, today, Georgia, tomorrow, Ukraine. Tomorrow, the day after, the Baltic states, and later, also, perhaps, Poland. So, President Lech Kaczynski, along with the leaders of Ukraine, Litva, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, went to Tbilisi to give solidarity, support, and to protest against the military aggression of Russia, which attacked a sovereign country, breaking international law and also committing crimes. And during their statements every time there in Georgia, 15 years ago, they appealed that the international community, that the free world would react definitively. That lack of a reaction, unfortunately, means that there will be a tomorrow and a day after tomorrow, and there will be some dramatic consequences for all of international society. If we look at the perspective of what has happened over the years, and what we must say, that these reactions beyond words, there were none, and the perpetrators were they did not take the consequences of that attack, of that aggressive attack. And it showed that the day after tomorrow had to occur. And it happened much faster than many believed it would. And that is that in 2014, Putin decided to continue to test the free world and did a hybrid attack on Ukraine. First overall, taking over Crimea, and then Donbass, and continuing with his plans. He observed once again how the world is reacting. Is it going to be a decided response? Is there going to be a hard reaction? Are there going to be sanctions in place? Are there going to be those bringing to responsibility and accountability for their crimes? Unfortunately, from that test, he also came to specific conclusions, because instead of penalties, he was awarded, Putin. In 2015, he signed Gazprom a contract for Nord Stream 2, which was a strategic objective of Russian policy, and the sending of gas to make it not have those values which are tied to being a transit country for that, to also depend other countries from Russian gas and dependent on Russian gas, which we see he did later as a tool of, and a kind of weapon and a tool of pressure in the civilized world, democratic world. And also, without basis, he was expecting on additional billions of euros and dollars, which will strengthen the Russian budget for the use for the modernization of the Russian army, but also corruption activities and broadly applied tools to weaken the Western world. If we look at it on what happened after 2014, after the next aggression and crimes of Russia, which was directly, where Ukraine was directly hit, it's difficult not to imagine that what happened in February of last year wasn't, let's say, a natural, foreseeable consequence. This was mentioned by Ukrainian politicians or CEE country politicians who know Russia very well for ages. They know the imperial nature which exists in the authorities of that country, and they foresaw that that's what would happen. So when the Western world was surprised that last year in February missiles fell in Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, women perished, children perished, innocent people, hospitals were bombed and destroyed. I hope that this time the world would react differently. And in this sense, I have to say that that hope became a fact, that the world reacted differently this time, that Ukraine received realistic support, that the scenario which was written that Kyiv was going to fall in 3 days did not happen, mainly for the reason that the Ukrainian nation and its patriotism courageously faced the Russian aggression and in a wise way directed its Ukrainian army and leadership. But also that there were some countries who immediately came to the aid of Ukraine, starting with the United States, President Biden, Boris Johnson in the UK, Poland, other countries of this region. There was a group of countries which decided to strongly support Ukraine, mainly through military support and weapons, ammunitions, everything that is necessary to defend against an attack, to show the attacker that the crime is not going to be worth it. But the element of that earlier reaction, which was missing, is also our meeting, our gathering. And as I mentioned, gives this additional uplifting of optimism that we're talking about an architecture of responsibility, penal, criminal responsibility for the perpetrators, which have touched so terribly the lives of many Ukrainians. We're also speaking to the perpetrators and addressing those who will continue, that the penalty will be unavoidable, that a crime will not be worth it, that the society of the free world will work together in solidarity with Ukraine. And also this is the activities of the Polish prosecutor's office, as Andrzej mentioned, 4 days after the aggression of Ukraine in the Ukraine, I declared the initiation of an investigation of that, of course, in contact with the general prosecutor of Ukraine, and together with Estonia, Romania, Slovenia, Latvia, Lithuania, the ICC, we created a team and a task force which is starting investigations. We've already have testimonials of 1,700 witnesses. We also have photos, material recordings, films, and these activities are being undertaken. Our prosecutors were also in the Ukraine, and they will continue to come in line with requirements and the cooperation that will be required, which is necessary to document the crimes here. So we hope that we will come from the press conference and today and tomorrow richer with the considerations and thoughts of how to bring to Russian perpetrators, bring them to justice. We can't forget the atrocities from Irpin, from Bucha, from other Ukrainian cities. We have to give them the honor, their honor for justice, to their memories, and tying into President Kaczynski's statement that the after tomorrow will not happen. I hope that the international community will bring these perpetrators to justice for these terrible atrocities. Thank you.